Hey there guys, Fred Barton from ChineseIsEasy.org again here. I just wanted to film this little video as a bit of a reaction to a video which I've seen by Steve Kaufman, who I really love and respect as an awesome linguist. He's a fantastic guy and his Chinese is amazing. But I've kind of got a bit of an issue with some of the hacks which he recommends inside his video called 6 Hacks for Learning Chinese. In the years that I was learning Chinese, I didn't actually totally agree with all of this stuff, and I actually came at it from a bit of a different angle, and I have some different hacks that I would like to share with you today. So, contrary to what Steve said, hack number 1 is you must start with Chinese characters, okay? I believe that is really essential. Chinese characters are the essence of the language, and as a foreigner, they're also the most fun part, so why wouldn't you study them? So apart from this, if you're just studying pinyin, which is the Romanized version of the character, it's just letters. It has no visual impact on you. It's just letters, and it has an accent mark to denote the tone that you need to use. Now in Chinese, there are millions of words which have the same pronunciation, the same Romanized Latin representation. So this can be very, very confusing. You want to have the characters. They're all unique. They have a massive impact on you. They're fun as hell to learn, and they're the best part, in my view, of learning Chinese. So you must start with characters. And in addition to all of this, if you don't, you're not laying the proper foundation for really learning Chinese. I had friends when I was out in China and we were learning. They started with pinyin. Yes, they could start to speak quite quickly, but they couldn't read, they couldn't write. What's the point of that, okay? If you're coming into this to really master Chinese, then you absolutely need to start with the foundation, with the cornerstones, which are Chinese characters. So make sure you do that. Don't cut corners, because you're gonna have to come back to it sooner or later, and you're gonna find yourself getting tripped up, whether you're at the bus stop trying to find your way home or whatever, or reading, just standard stuff in the restaurant on a menu. You're not going to have a clue. It's so much more fun and enriching to learn the characters. So number 1, use this as your starting point. It's much easier than you'd imagine. It's great. It's like a little art project. You get to draw them and it's hella fun. So start with the characters, okay? Now this leads into growth hack number 2, which is use flashcards. You must use flashcards. In my early years of learning Chinese, I must have written thousands upon thousands of flashcards. Now, I argue against buying ready-made boxes of flashcards, because I believe that the actual process of getting the little pieces of card, like the business type card, and writing out the character is a great process in itself. It helps burn that and etch that into your memory. And it's also a fun process, and you remember the whole process of creating a flashcard, and it just kind of drills it into you even more. So, number 2, use flashcards and make your own, and use spaced repetition with the flashcards. I'll go into this in a separate video, but what you want to do is you want to have a system whereby you have a pile for one set of flashcards where you know the pronunciation, the tones, the meaning, and how to write them. And then you want piles of cards which you know progressively less. So you work them through the system. So you have a card where you might know what that character represents, but you don't know how to say it, or you don't know how to write the pinyin, or you don't know what tone, okay? So you need to work out the piles, and then once they've moved through the system, they've gone through the sort of factory conveyor belt, and you know how to read them, write them, say them, and all the rest of it, then you can move them off your immediate pile into a box which you can come back to in a few months' time, okay? So you always want to be cycling through your flashcards. And what I found incredibly useful, because this is how the brain works, is that I would do a load of vocab right before bed, like a couple hours before bed, and then when I get up in the morning, I would review that vocabulary in the morning right before breakfast, and I would give myself a vocab test. And this now leads on to my growth hack number 3, which is all about memory and how to use mnemonics for your learning. So I use the books by Barry Buzan. They're really amazing. When I was studying, I didn't know many other people that were actually using these memory techniques, and I think it gave me a massive advantage. So very quickly, one system that Barry uses is you can represent a number with a picture. So for example, a 1 might be a golf flag. A 2 might be a swan because it looks like a swan. A 3 might be anything that looks like a 3. You can use your imagination. So what you then do, say you have a vocab test for 10 items, you get these images for 1 to 10, and then you pair them up in your mind with the vocab image that you're testing in Chinese. So it might be number 1 might be a man, 人 might be man. So you would pair in your mind in a funny kind of scenario a man with a golf flag, okay? Vocab item number 2 in Chinese might be mouth, 口. So you would have a mouth and a swan paired together, like maybe a mouth eating a swan or something like that. So that is how you use mnemonics for your memory system. And if you get the higher levels of the Buzan books, he takes you up to how to create systems for like tens of thousands of items. And when I was studying, especially during my master's degree, I could retrieve vocab items from a list of thousands and thousands. And yes, this is a cool party trick, but also it really helps you to burn that into your mind. You can just 1457, you know, it's some Chengyu or something, and you can just pull that right out of the memory bank and it's there. So I really, really recommend using mnemonics. Plus, it's extremely fun and it's a massive hack for your life in general. For telephone numbers, for PIN numbers, for card, you know, bank numbers and stuff, I don't use normal memorization techniques. I actually create words for the numbers, which you can learn in the Buzan and the other mnemonic literature. So study memory techniques, it's really useful. The next one is going to be you have to use software. So you've got to have Pleco Dict on your phone. That's the #1 go-to resource. You can also use stuff like Scritter for learning characters. And you also want a bunch of apps on your phone where you can just test yourself. So when you're learning Chinese, you're going to find that you're absolutely immersed in it. You're going to love it. You'll get addicted to it. So everywhere you go, you really want to have the opportunity to practice. So when I was sitting on the bus, I would be doing a vocab test on my phone. I'd be practicing learning. You know, I'd have a little test for writing the characters. So load up your phone with a bunch of apps like Pleco Dict, Scritter, and a load of other stuff for just testing vocab, and then you have access to these resources all the time, and you can be constantly testing your Chinese when you're out on the go, waiting in the doctor's surgery, on the bus, or whatever it might be. Okay, so make use of all the great software out there. Kind of obvious, but you really want to make sure you do that. And the next one, hack number 4, is make sure you're not just relying on the study materials that your teachers are giving you or stuff that you're buying, which is conventional Chinese study materials, because that is going to put you off learning really quickly. One of the main problems with learning Chinese is that the conventional study materials are terrible. They will make you want to cry. For example, my first lesson when I was learning Chinese was this really bad book, and we were learning how to buy a set of commemorative stamps, and it's like, you know, you're never ever going to use that. So make sure you augment and you supplement the materials you're getting from, you know, your study sessions with your own stuff. And for that, I highly, highly recommend books such as this, which are really good bilingual books that you can get from the Oxford University Press. You can get these in England and China, and they're on cool subjects. Like, I'm a bit of a geek, so I like 20th century Britain, a bit of modern history, a bit of Wittgenstein for philosophy. Okay, that's higher level stuff, but you can get more basic topics if you're just starting out, and it's awesome. You've got the English in there, and then you can go and cross-reference quickly, how would you say that in Chinese, and it will show you the actual Chinese version there as well. So they're extremely fun. I've also, as you can see, I went a bit crazy when I was in China and bought a whole load of these because they're really good. And I also bought a whole load of these too, which are the penguin ones. So this is the Great Idea series. And again, you've got a bit of Nietzsche or anything. There's a lot of different stuff. So it's fun, exciting stuff. It doesn't have to be super high level. There are more basic and intermediary ones. You're also going to want to get down to the bookstore and get some interesting stuff which Chinese people are reading. I love this kind of book. It's all like questions about Chinese culture. The level's not too high and it's actually interesting. That's the most important thing, which is unlike the normal materials you're going to get, it's actually interesting and you want to read it. And another thing for intermediate learners is you want to get literature. Well, even for basic learners, you could get, you know, as basic a stuff as you want, but I really recommend Jia Pingwa, which is, you know, proper literature, but it's written in a super simple, concise style. And then you get the buzz and the excitement of accessing real Chinese culture rather than these stupid textbooks. And it's not too difficult at all. And fifth and finally, you have to take advantage of modern Chinese multimedia. Okay, so when I first started studying, I was buying DVDs of Jia Pingwa, which is like a cheesy Chinese sitcom, but I loved it and it was really, really helpful because it had the subtitles in Chinese. But then, you know, you don't just have to rely on stuff like that. There's loads of stuff you can stream now, and you want to use Youku and Tudou Wang, which is the, you know, the equivalent of Western YouTube. So there's always good Chinese streaming sites and you can watch short clips. Make sure you're tapping into your interest, otherwise you're going to lose interest very quickly. So if you like basketball, watch the Chinese broadcast of the basketball. If you like soap operas, you can watch Chinese soap operas. Whatever it may be, you can now access that on Youku and Tudou Wang. So there's a whole host of stuff out there, but make sure you take advantage of it. And just to recap, my 5 hacks are: make sure you start with characters. They're the foundation and the lifeblood of Chinese. They're fun. Number 2, make sure you do flashcards, preferably write your own and use a spaced repetition system. There's also software for that like Anki you can use. Number 3, use mnemonics, a memory system. It's really useful for general life anyway, for memorizing long bank card numbers and all kinds of stuff. Number 4, create your own study materials, supplement your study materials, get these bilingual books, pick up the Chinese version of National Geographic and the similar, like a magazine which is similar to Time magazine, and all, there's good modern media out there which is relevant rather than these stale textbooks which are crap. Use Chinese software like Plecodict, Scritter, etc, etc. And number 5, make sure you use all the online free streaming stuff and the multimedia. Get as much multimedia into you as possible. And just keep your learning varied and fun. So those are my top 5 hacks for learning Chinese. That's all I got for you right now, and I'll be back in the next video with more good stuff for learning Chinese. I'll see you guys later on. Bye bye.